The greatest power you possess is your ability to choose. Join Lowe's Moore as he reveals how you can begin to maximize that power by exploring yourself on the deepest levels and committing to making lasting and positive changes. Get ready to achieve breakthroughs that will lead to accelerated growth and transformation, because you are now tuned in to the Blueprint.
Good evening and welcome back to Lowe's Moore and the Blueprint. Man, just excited to be back with you guys for another episode of the Blueprint. Hey, let me say this first of all. Last week was, I had a good time in last week. I got the opportunity. I don't know if many of you know that my daughter is an assistant coach in college, and they had the MAC championships down in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And my wife and I, we just said, look, we will go to these championships. And we got into a hotel in Atlantic City. And of course, we social distance, we masked. The hotel was, we were at the Hard Rock. We have a little membership with the Hard Rock, mostly the Hard Rocks that are in, Mexico and Punta Cana and all these different places. So, but we went to the one in Atlantic City, and for, there was some sense of normalcy. Not that we could walk around with our mask off or anything, and we didn't have to think about social distancing, but it was like for the first time that it wasn't a tragedy or somebody passed away that we had to go to a funeral or something like that. We actually had a chance to go and kind of breathe, get in the hotel. Hotel was like spotless. It was clean. Secured. It was just the perfect, from Wednesday to Saturday. It was just perfect space, living conditions for that time. And we got a chance to go see the games on Thursday and Friday, and enjoyed it and enjoyed the games and stuff like that. It just felt so good to get out, and my wife and I to get out and just walk around, just a beautiful time. And man, as it gets warm, my wife and I, we love playing golf, so we're going to be out playing golf. So that's a place where you can go and get out into the carts, get out into the open air. I think we're going to take a lot more time to find some of these places where you can go ride your bike or walk. I think we're trending back the other way, where everything was done inside. Now we're going to, maybe started trending back the other way, where, people are going more fishing, people are going for more nature walks and getting out, enjoying what God has made. And I'm looking forward to it as the weather gets warm, getting out with the family, walking and doing a number of different things. Do that. It will definitely relieve whatever stress that you've been under. And so as I start out here, this is a little basketball, a little miniature basketball I have here in my hand. Yeah, this is the miniature basketball, and I drop it every week, based on my book from the Boys and Girls Club to the NBA, Life on the Narrow Road, right? Scripturally, it says that broad is the road that leads to destruction and many find it, but narrow is the road that leads to life and only a few find it. And we hope that the Blueprint will help you find your narrow road. There's a lot of tests and a lot of temptation out there in the world, right? And sometimes, we get overtaken by things, but I thank God for the many people and mentors and coaches and teachers that God put in my life that kept pushing me back to that narrow road and keeping me on that straight and narrow path. So I want to drop this because, as I say, each week, Denzel Washington's wife did my forward in my book, and she said that my book was like a blueprint, right? And so that's where the name, the Blueprint, came from. And Denzel said my life was like a pebble. And when you place a pebble or throw a pebble in a pond, you get a ripple effect. We hope that during this pandemic, I think this is our 41st or 42nd episode of the Blueprint. And we hope that And well, I know that we've been given a ripple effect. I've heard a response from people, not a reaction, but a response from people on how the show has been a blessing to them and how they have been encouraged during the midst of this pandemic. So I'm going to drop my pebble into that pond this evening, and we're looking forward to a ripple effect of this show. This is about personal and lifestyle development, and the blueprint. And we always say scripturally, love to go to the scriptures because they have so many powerful things that a people or a person without a vision will perish. Well, if you don't have a vision, and a blueprint is a vision in pictures, right? You have to, you have a dream about something, about a car, you diagram that car. I remember when I was a little kid, I used to always in art class draw these cars about my future cars and I want to have that hyped up car and the color of the car that I wanted and so forth and so on. Well, that was a blueprint. It was a vision. It was a dream, something that I was looking forward to in the future. And so I hope, and you hear me say this most of the time on the show, that you're just not sitting dormant during this pandemic and saying, oh man, I'm just going to sit here. I'm just going to wait. I'm not going to dream, and I'm not going to plan. I'm not going to work on my future. I said, this is the time when you're dormant, right? When there's no place to go and you're in your house, this is the time to dream. This is the time to look at your vision. This is the time to create a vision board, right? And write down that vision, write down that plan, and start to put it into play. So as this pandemic starts to transition and some normalcy starts to come, then you'll be ready when this ends. You'll be ready for it. Now, I know there are people out there right now planning, right? They are planning. They can't wait to this end and taking advantage of this opportunity of what I call an explosion after this pandemic is over. So make sure you're preparing your blueprint, your vision, so that when as it's coming out, you're putting your plan and your vision into play. So I want to start out by, as this month, the month of March, you notice that I have a number of friends of mine, pastors that will be on the show this month, and we had what we call 7 spheres of influence. We started out with the sphere of family. We dove into some political and politics. We looked at some arts, sports, arts, and entertainment field, and now we're in the sphere of religion and relationship, and we started it last week. And my good friend Pastor Paul, we were talking about the importance and power of God and his supernatural awareness or supernatural lifestyle. We started with that last week. And so this week we're going to continue with my guest this week. But before that, I just want to share something real quick. Just the next couple of minutes, I just want to share something. Back about maybe 7 years ago, this is before the pandemic, and it was still crazy then. It was political things going on in the city, in my city, and in the nation and in the world. There were a lot of crazy stuff going on, a lot of violence going on, domestic violence, a lot of things going on. And in my life experience as a man of God, I felt like I was doing everything I could do, marching when people say march, when things were being shut down, going there to make sure those things were open. Just fighting and giving out food and, just all kind of wonderful things during that time. It just felt like that I was treading water or spinning wheels, and I was getting frustrated because I was actually using all my energy and all my strength, and it seemed like things, and it wasn't just me, I'm just talking about a number of people were fighting for these causes, and it just seemed like we just wasn't making any headway. And I asked God in my prayers, I said, Lord, is there more? Right? Is there more? And I make a long story short. That was on a Sunday when I asked the question. And then on Monday, a good friend of mine I hadn't seen in like 25 or 30 years called me, a Pastor Paul, who was on my show last week. And he said to me, the Lord asked me to give you a call. And he came to Mount Vernon from Maryland, and he took me and my wife out to lunch, and he talked about the power, the miracles of God, the signs, wonders, and miracles of God, and all the things that God had allowed him to do over the last 30 years in foreign countries, over in the Eastern countries and Eastern philosophies. I mean, Malaysia, Africa, China, Brazil. And he talked about all the great works that God was doing. And I was like, wow, maybe God was answering a prayer. Is there more? And I've been fired up ever since then. And so we're going to talk about, is there more, during the course of these next several weeks. And I'm excited just to share my experience, because in the pandemic, social justice issues, I'm sure some of you are saying, man, is there something else we can do? Is there more? Right? So without further ado, I want to get right into this. And I'm going to start out this week with my book of the week. Right? The book of the week is There Is More by my good friend Randy Clark of the Global Awakening Ministries. Dr. Clark has been instrumental in my growth in regards to my faith and in regards to the supernatural lifestyle. And so this is an awesome book. There Is More by Randy Clark. Make sure you get that book, man. If you want an experience, right? If you're looking for more, get that book. You're going to be blessed by that. And then the word of the week is growth, right? You can see based on those flowers, I don't know anybody that doesn't want to grow, right? And this is a time, right? I used to always say to athletes, I never got better during the season. I always got better in the off season. So when we're in this period of reset, this is the place of where we could grow. This is the time where we had no time. Now we got time. Now we can spend time with God. Now we can spend time studying, right? Now we can spend time focusing on our vision and dreams, right? This is a time of growth. God has given us a season and a time of growth. And I'm excited about this because I believe during this pandemic, I have grown. I have matured. And so that's the word of the week. Look it up. Growth. You should be growing. If you're not growing, right, then there is a problem. And then my good friend Hill Hopper and his son Pierce Hopper, this is an affirmation, and I added quote moment, right? So this is from Dr. Miles Monroe. The greatest tragedy in life is not death, but a life without purpose. So ask yourself as you retire tonight, as you go to sleep, what is my purpose? And then start to fight like I don't know what to find out what your purpose is. There's a reason. There's a reason why you have these gifts. There's a reason why you have these talents, right? And you need to find what the purpose is for your life and for your gifts. So, and then I want to do a quick shout out. I got to do some shout outs here because this week, the King Movement, right? I think we have that on the King Movement. I think there's another one to start out with. The King Movement, my good friend Chris Broussard, we are having our annual King Movement, the National King Movement. We're having a summit. This year is hosted by Pastor A.R. Bernard down in Brooklyn, the Christian Cultural Center. It starts on the 19th and 20th. It is virtual, right? So make sure you go to thekingmovement.com and check it and check out our Summit, National King Movement Summit, this coming week, the 19th and 20th. And, check out, here's some of the speakers. We have Ben Watson, Brian Dawkins. These are all former MFL Hall of Famers. Tony Dungy, Brian Marshall. We also have our actors, Michael T. Williamson from Fences. And we also have Sean Alexander. And we also have many, many, many more speakers and entertainment during the course of that. Make sure you go to kingmovement.com and make sure you register. And then one of my good friends, actually my coach, CJ, I want to, say rest in peace to my first coach when I was a little kid. CJ, I got cut from one side of North Side, the South Side Boys Club, went on to the North Side Boys Club, and CJ just gave me a jersey and put me on a team. It was the start of my career, and he has been a blessing to thousands of kids, not just in Mount Vernon, but from all different counties and cities. He passed away last week. I mean, he was a little guy with the biggest heart in the world. Man, CJ, you're going to be missed. You will be missed by so many people, right? And your legacy is sealed. You have been a blessing, just a blessing to so many young people. And you're going to truly be missed. Rest in peace, man. And we're going to continue to pray for your family as well. Speaking of family, right? I got another shout out. And that young lady on the side is my daughter, right? And that's my daughter right there. And my guest tonight that's his son right there. And they got engaged this year, and they will be getting married next June 2022. And so we're gonna have a great conversation tonight with my good friend Pastor Pogue, Pastor Stephen W. Pogue. And before he pops on, I want to play this little video because it's going to set the stage for our conversation tonight. Throw that highlight up there real quick.
God could touch any one of you. You shall see greater things than this. You're going to see something greater than words of knowledge, greater than gifts of prophecy. You're going to see something greater than discerning of spirits. You're going to see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. We, the church, we are the body of Christ today. And it's the body of Christ upon which this activity between heaven and earth is flowing. The angelic, the Holy Spirit, it's our inheritance. And today there's a hunger that's in you. My faith isn't in my work, it's in His work. It's not in my volunteering, it's on His calling. God's eyes roam to and fro across the earth, looking for someone through whom He can show Himself strong. It is our inheritance that we be mighty men and women, that we be powerful, that we be used of God, that we not be fearful, but the enemy fears us because we have the authority of His name.
I want to welcome to the BluePrint Pastor Pogue. Yeah. Pastor, how you doing?
I'm good. Good. Thank you for having me. Good to be here.
Yes, sir. Now, before we get into something that one of your fellow pastors said, and something that Randy Clark said, I want to talk a little bit about family. So talk to me about family, man. You know, growing up, mom and dad, siblings.
Yeah. Growing up, I grew up in New Jersey, in a little town called Roselle. My mom and dad had 6 children, And so I'm kind of the middle one of the six. They had two sets of twins, so I'm squeezed in between two sets of twins. And really, my mom and dad got a divorce and really was raised by a single mother who just really loved the Lord and really praised God and really prayed me through some stuff, man, that I wouldn't even be here if she wasn't a prayer. And so I do know the power of prayer and how God answers the prayers, sometimes not of yourself, but the prayers of somebody else praying for you. And so grew up in New Jersey, served in the Air Force, and then got out of the Air Force, started working, and then I felt this call in my life, and God called me to ministry. Married to my wife. This April will be 20 years that we have been married. We have 3 children, Stephen, Stephanie, and Deanna. Stephen, you've already shown, who soon will make us family. And so we are excited about that union and just really proud of both of them and what they're doing in their lives and knowing that this is going to be a power couple and a powerful union that's going to be rooted and grounded in God. And so just excited about that. So yeah, that's kind of my short story of my family.
Yeah. So I mean, I was the oldest in my in my family. Yeah, I was the oldest in my family. So you're in the middle. So what was it like? I don't know what it is to be
crazy.
in the middle.
It's like real crazy being in the middle, because like I said, I'm squeezed between 2 sets of twins. So I had my older brother who went on to be with the Lord, and so me and him were the only 2 who weren't twins. But we're the only 2 who looked alike. We're the only 2 who had the same initials. The other twins don't look alike. So it's two girls. They don't look nothing alike. A boy and a girl, they don't look nothing alike. So it was interesting being squeezed in between these 2 sets of twins because you almost never have an opportunity to be the youngest. You never have the opportunity to be the oldest. You kind of just got to fit in when you fit in. But really have some great brothers and sisters who do their best to take care of me. Now I feel like they look to me for all of the guidance and stuff. So yeah, being in the middle is an interesting place to be. But I think God, positions you where you need to be. And so I'm all right with it.
Yeah. Talk to me in that process. You talk about a little bit about your mom and talk about how important, and we talking about the importance of family, but in that family, talking about the importance of faith, your mom, faith, and how that impacted the family as well.
Yeah, had 2 praying grandmothers who they were just prayer warriors, never understood why sometimes they just sit and rock. But that was their prayers and just talking to God. And then having a praying mother, we grew up in a family where you had no choice. You were going to go to church. If you couldn't sing, you were going to sing on the junior choir. If you couldn't usher, you were going to usher on the junior usher board. You were going to go to Sunday school. You were going to learn your Easter part. You were going to learn your Christmas speech. You were going to learn all of those things because they just believed that if you raise up a child in the way that they should go, when they're old, they won't depart from it. That even though when you get older, you stray away, but it's that grounding, that foundation that they had in faith, in remembering all of those times in church, remembering have to sit through 3 and 4 services on a Sunday, remembering that you had church clothes and play clothes, and remembering that, sometimes on Sunday you didn't get to do anything but be still. That's what Sunday was. There was no cooking on Sunday. Sunday was done, dinner was done on Saturday and all of those other things. And so grew up with a real strong foundation in faith. And as I said earlier, I know for me that it was the prayers of my mother that really saw me through a rough period of my life. That when I didn't even know it, I found out later that she used to go to this little church on Sunday evenings, and some of the ladies there, they would literally be on their face praying for me. I had no clue. I was out there doing what I wanted to do, but they were literally on their face praying for me. And it was those prayers that just really changed my life and really saved my life. So when I think about my mother's faith, I'll share a quick story. I remember we were struggling. You know, we didn't have a lot growing up. We were struggling. And I remember my mother saying, set the table. And we all looking at each other, set the table. There's nothing in here to eat. And you talking about set the table. And as we were setting the table, the phone rings. And it's one of our neighbors who had just had a dinner party and had some leftover pans of baked ziti, and asked my mother if she wanted them. And it was more than one pan. It was more than enough. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that my mother's faith was just set the table. And God will provide. And so many times when we think about faith, do we have enough faith to set the table when there's nothing in the refrigerator? Do we have enough faith to set the table when there's nothing in the cupboards? Do we have enough faith to set the table and there's nothing to cook? And so when we talk about faith, my mother lived out of faith. She just didn't talk about it. So I'm a product of that.
Well, yeah, sometimes it's not about what you say, right?
Absolutely.
It's about the action. And, you know, when did you, you know, for all of us, you know, probably against our will, we had to go to those churches and we had to go to those services and do all those things. When did it happen for you in regards to you making a personal decision to, because you can't live off mom and you can't live off grandparents. You know, you got to somewhere down the line, you got to come to your own faith, you know.
Absolutely. Was really struggling with drugs and alcohol, really struggling real bad with that. And as I said, my mother prayed me through, and I'll never forget. I went to a Christian drug and drug rehab program in Connecticut. And I remember when I came in, the counselor said to me, do I want to give my life to Christ? And I was a functioning drug addict and alcoholic. I would go to church because I felt like every Sunday I needed to rejoin the church because I blew it on Monday. You know, so on Sunday I joined the church and go up and give my life, and on Monday I'd be right back into that same thing. And so I thought to myself in that moment, and as I sat there and thought, he said, you don't have to do it now. You can wait. I said, no, just give me a minute. And I prayed to myself. I said, Lord, if I give my life to you now, I want it to be for real. And it was in that very moment, Lowe's, that the Lord took the taste of drugs and alcohol out of my mouth. And I haven't looked back since. And that was 93, 94, somewhere in there. And I haven't looked back since. And that was the moment for me that really changed my life, and had an opportunity in that program really to search and seek God out for myself. And when I tell people what God can do, I'm not telling you from book knowledge. I'm not telling you from what I may have learned in a classroom. I'm telling you from personal experience that if God can do it for me, that he can do it for anybody. And so in that very moment, when I gave my life to Christ, I was sold out from that very moment.
Wow. Yeah. My wife was just put a little thing up there saying she's a middle child. She wanted you to know I'm a middle child. Yeah.
That's why I love your wife so much.
Yeah. But that's awesome, man, because, you know, I think that, you know, our parents want the best for us. Right. And our grandparents especially want the best for us. And they try to lay that foundation, you know, for us. But, you know, like I say, you know, one of the powers of this show is that we all have the power to choose. We all have the power of choice, and people are giving you all the options. Right. And I said earlier, you know, there's always a broad road, a wide road, and a narrow road. Right. And that wide road always looks spectacular. It's like Las Vegas, you know.
Right. I mean, everybody's on it.
Yeah, everybody's on it, and all the test is on, all the temptation, you know. But somewhere down the line, you said somebody prayed for you, and those prayers were hopefully leading you to that narrow road, and people coming in your life, and the program that you entered would leading you to that narrow road, and where you could see and make that choice. So that's awesome. And, you know, as a part of the show too, family, faith, education. So, you know, after making that decision to come to Christ, you know, talk a little bit about, you know, high school and moving on in regards to education. Because I tell everybody, you know, go for your dreams, but only education creates choices.
Absolutely. I'm one who absolutely believes that the only thing, or one of the only things in life that people cannot take from you is your education. That once you have that knowledge, nobody can take it from you. And in high school, I didn't take education seriously, and I just kind of floated through high school. And so after high school, I joined the Air Force because my mother had a rule in her house that you were either going to work or go to school, but you were not going to sit up in her house and do nothing while she went to work. And so I made the choice to join the Air Force, and it was getting out of the Air Force and going through all of those turbulent times that I already spoke about, that once I came out of the program, I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew God had a call in my life. I knew God was calling me. Probably knew it since I was 13. But ran from that call, I put on my Jonah jogging suit, got in the boat and went to Tarshish. I wasn't going to Nineveh. And plus, when you don't have anybody that can nurture that call at such a young age, that is important too. And so when I got out of the program, I didn't know what I was going to do. And so a good friend of mine gave me an application to Nyack College. They said, I heard you're going to be a preacher, so you're going to have to go to school. I said, I guess. And so here I am, 10 years out of high school, I think, about that time. I'm filling out an application to go to Nyack College to study for a bachelor's degree, and didn't know how I was going to make it. But by the grace of God, I made it through Nyack College with my bachelor's degree. Then after I left Nyack, I took about a year off, I believe, and then went to Alliance Theological Seminary and got my Master's of Theology degree. And then after that, went to McCormick's Theological Seminary in Chicago and got my Doctor of Ministry degree. So I'm one who really, really believes that education is so important. Education is so important for our young people. That's why I'm worried in this remote learning world that we're in now, that our children will not get all that they need in this remote learning. Want them to go back to school, want them to be safe, want the teachers to be safe, want staff to be safe. But there's nothing like sitting in a classroom and getting that education where teachers can nurture you and pull the very best out of you. Even at Greater Centennial, if you go into our fellowship hall, we have a bunch of college banners on the wall.
Yeah.
And somebody asked me, why are those banners up there? I said, because every time a child comes down here, I want to put college in their face. I want them to see that they can go. And there's so many choices. There's Ivy League schools, HBCUs, PWIs, all types of schools that you can go to college and you can get an education. But start dreaming, start thinking about what it is that you really want to do with your life and how you're going to make a difference. And once you get that education, man, is nothing like it. There's nothing like it.
Well, yeah, education is important. You know, one of the things that Denzel Washington and myself, we all talk about in the boys club. The first time I entered the boys club, right, there were college banners lying throughout the lobby, right, and you should look up and you see Fordham University and you see historically black colleges, you see Manhattan, you see all these different colleges, and at the bottom had a little sign that says, John Doe went to Fordham University and he was a club member, and so we walk around that lobby, from the game room to the gym to upstairs, and we used to point, I'm going to go to that school one day. I'm going to go to that school one day. And if somebody was like a mentor or a hero you could look up to, then you say, I'm going where, like Denzel Washington was up there, I'm going to Fordham University. And then eventually, Lowe's goes to West Virginia. And then somebody said, well, I'm going to go to West Virginia. So that, like you're saying, is so powerful, when you show that, because the mind picks up that, it picks up those images. And that's very powerful, particularly for our kids today. And, one of the things I valued about a program at the Boys and Girls Club was called Power Hour, right? And parents used to always think that they had, and technically you had an hour to do your homework, right? But we know that's impossible, right? So the Power Hour is not about getting your homework done in 1 hour. It was teaching you to become a self-sufficient learner so that one day you could complete your homework in an hour, right? So the thing was, but you had to grow. You had to grow and learn how to become self-sufficient learners, right? So that you can work more efficiently.
Absolutely.
Right. So that you can, because that's what happens when you get to college. You have to be more, efficient.
You are on your own.
Yeah, you're on your own. And if you don't learn to be sufficient now,
Yep.
you're not going to be sufficient when you go to college.
Absolutely. And it's so important that we push our kids and push them past their own limits that they think they have on themselves. One of the things I tell my daughters and Stephen is that, listen, we don't use the word can't. It may be difficult, it may be hard, but you can do this. You're not the first person facing this. So
right.
You can do it. You're just going to have to put some more effort in it. And so don't tell me what you can't do. Show me what you can do. And so, and just pushing them past some places that even they don't think they can go. And to see the joy on their faces when they accomplish whatever it is they didn't think they can do, and saying, oh, I thought this was hard and I couldn't do it. And now you turn around and you get a B, you get an A, and you didn't think you could do it at first. So it's just really pushing them and putting as much as we can into them, helping them to be self-sufficient, but also leading them and guiding them into making those decisions that they need to make for themselves. Because as they grow up, I want to have the confidence, and I do have the confidence, that my children are going to make good decisions. They're going to make good decisions because I've had them make decisions. Sometimes they say, Dad, I want to do what do you think? I don't know. What do you want to do? Tell me what you're thinking. So it's not always giving the answer. It's how do we process this?
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. And, as we transition, this pandemic has been crazy. Social justice pandemic. It was crazy before the pandemic. And now, and then it got a little bit more crazy. Right. And so during this time, I'm sure that some people would have lost faith. Right. And, in this sphere of, I call religion / relationship, right? In your mind, what is the difference between religion and a relationship when it comes to God?
Yeah. When you have a relationship with God, you are connected with him on a totally different level. When we talk about religion, we talk about those things that we do. We go to church, we go to Bible study, we, do these things, and we call ourselves religious. But there's another level that says, I do those things because I'm building my relationship. And when I'm building my relationship with God, I'm doing everything that I can possibly do to get closer to him. God knows me. He knows everything about me. Bible says the hair, how little I have, he has it numbered. He knows everything about me. But conversely, I don't know everything I need to know about him. And the only way I can get to know God is to spend time with him, to build that relationship with him every opportunity that I get. So what I love about God is I'm able to build my relationship with him through my failures and my flaws. That God is not looking for me to be perfect in this relationship. He's looking for me to do everything I can do to get closer to him, to learn from my mistakes, to learn from my failures. And he's there to pick me up every time, just like a loving father. Dust me off, say, you're going to be all right, get back in the game. And those are one of the things that I love about God, is that he always gives us opportunity to build relationship. God always shows us another way to see him. The book God Chasers. In the book God Chasers, Thomas Tenney, I believe it is, talks about God is like the father that plays hide and seek with his little child.
Hmm.
He never hides enough where you can't find him. He always puts a little toe out, a little arm out, something where you're going to be able to find him, but you got to seek it. And see, that's the relationship part. We want sometimes God just to show up. God, I'm in trouble, show up. And we don't want to do some seeking. We don't want to do some chasing. But sometimes we have to seek God in those things. And God's not hard to find. He's not hard to find at all. He makes himself very well known if we're willing to look for him in every little detail of our life.
That's awesome, man. I was talking about, like, my grandfather used to say, "Man, come over here, boy. I'm gonna give you a nugget." And I'd be like, "What, a nugget? What was that?" You know. And then today, in a more modern time, it was a commercial out with Damon Lillard on dropping dimes. Well, you just dropped a dime there. Right? We appreciate the nugget for those old folks out there like myself.
Yeah.
We appreciate the dime for those young folks that are out there too as well. You know, you're going to hear a lot of nuggets and a lot of dimes tonight. So, you know, hey, get your pen and pencil out, or hopefully you watch this again and you start working on that vision. So something during the pandemic, right in the midst of the pandemic, I was on Facebook, and I just happened to see Reverend Pastor Reverend Franklin Richardson was on.
Mm-hmm.
He was on a panel discussion on Facebook, along with Noel Jones and Al Sharpton and another young pastor. And he wasn't saying much, you know. And usually when I see those things, you know, they catch my attention. I was like, I don't know if I want to look at this. But something prompted me to listen and take a look. And Reverend Sharpton said he said, "Doc," saying to Reverend Richardson, "You got anything to say?" And it's not really like Reverend Richardson not to say stuff, you know. So, you know, so he was not saying anything. And then so he said, "Doc, you got something to say?" And Reverend Richardson said, "You know, I was asking myself the other day, was the church relevant before the pandemic? And will the church be relevant after the pandemic?" Right. And so what do you think about that comment in regards to the state of the Black church?
That is a loaded question. And it's loaded for a bunch of reasons. I've been thinking about this as well, of where we are as a church, post-pandemic or pre-pandemic, mid-pandemic, and what it'll be post-pandemic. And so when we think about pre-pandemic, were we just trying to fill our churches, and get people in, or were we really trying to transform lives? Because I think that's what the church really is supposed to be, is a transforming station, that we should see people's lives change and see people develop and see people saved and healed and delivered and set free. And then when the pandemic hit, a lot of people said we shut the churches down. Well, I have issue with that. Because in the midst of a crisis, in the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of all what we're facing, the church should be the last place to shut down. It should be the place. Back in the day, the Black church was the first welfare system. When somebody needed rent money, they didn't go down to social services. They came to the church. When people were hungry, they didn't go to food pantries. They came to the church. It was the church that took care of the needs of its members. And so one of the things that we did is we just started shifting our thought process, that we needed to be more community focused. We need to focus on what are the needs of this community in the midst of this pandemic. So if it's clothing, we have clothing. If it's food, we have food. If it's a ride to the doctor's office, we want to be able to provide whatever it is that you needed in the midst of this pandemic, because if we're not relevant mid-pandemic, we definitely will not be relevant post-pandemic. And so it's so important that we use all of our technology, everything that we have, to reach people. More people now are probably viewing church services than ever before.
Right.
Because everybody's online. I joke with my members all the time. I said, okay, I know I got to let y'all go because y'all got to get to your next service because they're watching 3 and 4 services. And
Right.
I applaud that. I want them to soak it all in, get as much as they possibly can. And when we think about the church and we think about the Black church, how do we once again revitalize who we were? We were the place of social justice. We were the place of the change agents in the world. I was watching this movie called Shared Legacies, and they were talking about slavery and all those things. And when Lincoln was getting ready to free the slave, he called some Black preachers to the White House to talk about some of these things that were happening. So in the midst of it, in the civil rights movement, Black preachers were called to the White House. What do you do? What do you want to do? And so now, do we lose our relevance because we don't have a voice anymore? And so when you look at the civil rights movement, when you look at other movements that have happened, especially for African Americans, it was led by the Black church. The question is, have we lost our voice? Have we lost our relevance in who we are? And you know, we don't have Dr. King and other leaders. So who are our leaders? Who are our voices? Who's speaking for us in our church? And then do we get behind that voice? And how do we make sure that as we move forward, that somebody who may have not known God, who may not care anything about the church, will say, at my lowest moment in my life, that church helped me. That church blessed me.
Yeah. And I guess here's the other question. Getting back to being relevant in regards to helping not only just the members, but our communities. And not only just our community, but people in need, right? How do we now connect to what I think is the most important thing? How do we continue to be relevant in the areas I just mentioned? And then how do we connect with the body of Christ? Right? Because, you know, when you talk about the body, right, you're talking about the other denominations, the other ministries that are out there, other cultures. How do we stay relevant at what I just mentioned, and how do we also become relevant as a body?
Yeah, it's so important that we have to connect, right? Because we are the body, Christ is the head. So regardless of race or gender, you are part of the body, and there's no one part of the body more important than the other part, right? And so when we think about how do we connect and making sure that we connect with other denominations, with other cultures, and not be afraid to reach across the aisle and say, let's partner. Let's partner in this endeavor. Let's partner here. And then not be afraid to have those conversations, especially with the state of race relations, you know, under COVID 45, you know, race relations were just crazy in this nation. And we found ourselves in a place where we once again were not a United States of America, but a divided States of America. And it was a great opportunity for us to, as a church, to say, listen, we are the body of Christ, and we're going to come together, and I'm going to partner with you, and you can partner with me, and we can get some things done to show the world that God is trying to get our attention. You said something earlier about the reset button. And so it is so important that what happens during the reset. I like to play video games every now and then when I get a few minutes. And if I'm playing something that I'm not that good at, I can be losing, but I can hit the reset button and start all over again. And so it gives me another opportunity to learn from some things from the previous game, and then try to beat the level or whatever it is that I'm doing. But if we don't reset right, we'll go back to the default of where we were before. And I really don't believe that's what God was trying to do in this season. He was trying to set us in a different path and take us to a different place. And he was definitely trying to get our attention. The question is, did he really get it, or did we allow the distractions of a pandemic to have our focus on that and not say this is the moment? The Bible says that we rend our hearts and not our garments. This is the moment that we turn our face towards God and say, God is going to work this thing out. And then we build our faith saying, I don't know when, I don't know how, but God is going to see us through this thing. And he's been faithful in that. The question is, have we been? And have we become comfortable behind our mask and not saying, God, I surrender all to you?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And that which leads me to the question. I was having a conversation, and are we still in the church age, or are we transitioning into the kingdom age? I mean, and the difference between the two, because Jesus talked most of his ministry about the kingdom more than he talked about the church, right? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, how do we make that transition to become kingdom saints? That our thought process, our actions, our words are kingdom minded and not just institutionally minded. That we're not more concerned about the institution than we are the kingdom. Because at the end of the day, all of us are going to have to stand before Christ and answer. And so, and we have to get to a place where it's not about me. It's not about my ministry. It's just about ministry. It's not about my title. It's not about if I get credit. It's about making sure that God gets the glory out of our lives. And so I just believe that God does things for our good and his glory. And we can never forget the peace, and this is the kingdom piece, I think, that God has to get the glory, that God has to be the one that gets the glory. It's no longer I, but it's everything about God and what God is doing in the midst of all of this. In the midst of the pandemic, God is still God. He's still worthy to be praised through the heartaches, through the disappointments. I've done more funerals than I care to count. But through it all, I've always implored the family to say that God still knows what he's doing. And he is still sitting high. He's still looking low. He never makes a mistake. And none of this is a mistake. But when you're thinking church-minded, you think that, oh, God has given up on us. God has thrown in the towel. When you think about the children of Israel, God could have threw the towel on them and many a times. I mean, how many times did he told Moses, just get out of my way, let me wipe them out, I'll make you a great nation? And Moses said, wait a minute, God, hold on. Just wait before you do that. Don't wipe us all out. You have to remember that, God, you are the one that brought us this far along the way. And so because you brought us this far, if you destroy us now, people will say you're not God. And so God said, okay, Moses, I'm gonna give y'all another chance, but y'all getting on my nerves a little bit here. And so, and I think sometimes in this pandemic, God was saying, where's your faith? Where is it at? I'm going to see you through it. Yes, you may lose some people through it, but where's your faith? I'm going to see you through it. And so it has been a tough time. But when we think about kingdom, I think about it's all about God getting the glory. God has to get the glory, and that has to be our mindset if we're kingdom focused.
Right. And yeah, one of the things that I realized, and you heard me probably in the introduction when I was talking about my prayer, when it wasn't as bad. It was bad, but it was not as bad as it is what we're experiencing now. But it was bad. And I just felt like I was working. I think all of us were working, to try to keep hospitals open, to stop violence, gangs going crazy, all these kind of things going on. And we are marching and we're taking long hours spending with people and trying to talk, and meetings after meetings with government and, community. And I had just gotten to the point, man, when I was just like, I was toiling, you know, and it was taking a physical, it was damaging me physically.
Yeah.
Right. And I, you know, and this is before the pandemic. So, and before and in the process of my question, that I was experiencing it, and I wasn't a pastor, but being an executive director of an organization, you like a pastor. You got people that work for you. You know, you got board members, you get all kind of things, and it was just stressful. And so I would see pastors in at breakfast at different places, and they had this toiling look on their face, you know. And I've had pastors come to me say, and I say, well, how's everything going? Man, Doc, I almost gave this up, you know, like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And going through some struggle. So I asked the question to God in my prayer, is there more? Right. And you heard me say what would end up happening, how God manifests. And over the last 6 years, going on 7 years, you know, God showed me more. Right. And so when I think about the church, and I think about now shifting into the kingdom, and then what you said about Moses, right, and how all throughout the Bible, we were trying to do it. You know, we were trying to take the credit, and we were trying to our efforts. And I think that we get to a place, man, where God just says, you know what, you go ahead and do it. Right. And I think, but I do believe we're transitioning into a place where I've learned over these last 6 years, it's not about me toiling, it's about me thriving.
Mm.
Right. It's not, because it's not me who's doing the healing. Right. It's God who uses me as an instrument, whatever degree, whatever level, whatever the issue is. But I got to rely on him, right, for the answers. I may be the tool, the instrument, but I've got to trust God in the decisions and strategies and things that need to be done. And that goes beyond my human capacity. It enters into what I consider is a supernatural lifestyle. And that's what I've been dealing with over these years. How much of it is God sitting back waiting for us so that we can now say, you know what, God did that, right? Mm-hmm. And rather than, you said it earlier, whether you're getting the glory and, you know, you become idols to people. People start worshiping the man over worshiping God, right? And then we get caught up sometimes. We think we
absolutely
are. And so how do we transition into this lifestyle that we want God to be God? We want to experience it.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's a couple of things. God tells the children of Israel, be still and know that I'm God. The problem is not knowing that you're God most of the time. The problem is being still. Because being still, we feel like we're not doing anything, and I got to do something, and I got to help. I got to, you know, and God sometimes just says, I just need you to sit back and watch. He says, be still and see the salvation of the Lord. He didn't say sit back and be still and get in there and fight. I didn't ask you to fight. I asked you to be still. And so it's almost like you're in a basketball game, you're down by 5, it's the 4th quarter, you're tired, and the coach takes you out and put you on the bench. And you're looking at the coach like, look, come on, I can do this. And the coach says, you just need some rest. And so we have a hard time sometimes sitting on the bench. We have a hard time sometimes just being able to say, you know what, God, I'll sit this one out and you handle it. I'm here if you need me, but you handle it. And that's the hard part, especially when we've been toiling. We've been working. We've been in the game. We've done it. We've played every game of the year. And here it is in this game, God says, I'm going to sit you out. And you say, well, God, this is the biggest game of the year. Yeah, take a break. I got this. And it's really, do we get to a place in our faith where we can say, God, I trust you enough to sit out. I trust you enough to sit on the bench. Now I'm going to be over here rooting. I'm going to be over here cheering. I'm going to be over here shouting. My hands are going to be lifted up. But I'm going to sit this one out because in this moment, I need you to shine. And when we get to a place where we can just say, God, I'm just going to be still. I'm throwing up my hands. I'm dropping my rocks. I'm dropping my weapons. And God, I'm just going to let you have this. And that is hard for those of us who are used to being on the front line.
Wow.
Who are used to saying, or used to being the one that's always there. And for many pastors and for many leaders, we feel bad when we can't be there. We feel bad. And I tell people all the time, God runs me in seasons. It's taken me a long time to understand this, that my season of rest is a very short season. But if I don't take the season of rest, I will not be prepared for the next season. And so everybody can't understand your season of rest, but you have to take that. If you're going to be kingdom good, you have to take the season of rest, because it's in that moment of season of rest that God is taking some of that stress off of you, that pressure off of you, the burdens off of you, the weight off of you, because you deal with so much comes upon you. As you said, you're dealing with board members and club members and this one and that one and that one. In church, you're dealing with members and bishops and presiding elders and all of these budgets and all of this other stuff. But when God says, listen, it's the season of rest, and you don't take that season of rest, you will not be prepared for the next season. Right. And then God can't use you to the full capacity that he would in the kingdom if you don't take a moment to say, I'm going to take this season of rest, and don't feel bad about it. I used to feel bad about my seasons of rest. I used to feel horrible about it. What do you mean rest? I got to do this and I got to do that and I got to do the other thing. But just to have a week where there's nothing on my calendar and leave it that way. And don't feel bad about sleeping to 10, 11, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, because this is the season of rest. And then in that season, God is pouring into you because so much is on you. And if we don't have a season where God can pour into us, how do we give it out? How do we become effective in the kingdom when there's no more to give?
That's true.
And so when you say, is there more? Yeah, there's more. God has got so much more for us. The question is, are we ready for more? And many times we're not, because our hands are too full.
Yeah.
We got too much in our hands. And God said, if you put some of that down, I got something else for you. Well, God, I don't know what to put down. He put it all down, because what I have next for you is so much better than what you've already been through. And so I just think we have to understand the seasons that God puts us in so we can become effective in the kingdom.
Yeah, I think that's important too. I think that in this pandemic, in this reset, I think God is asking us to rest, right? And so we can hear from him. It's not what I want to do, right? It's, okay, Lord, what do you want to do? And in my men's call for the last 6 years, as we talked to men about the supernatural lifestyle, resting is a real key to this, and intercession is a real key. We always think that intercession is, okay, well, I'm gonna pray for the city, and it is. I'm gonna pray for the city. I'm gonna pray for this one. I'm gonna pray for that one. I'm gonna pray for it, right? But I think in Ezekiel 4, it talks about when the water was ankle deep and it was knee deep, so forth, and then you get submerged, right? Well, I think the submerging part of it, where is that you learn to rest in him, and it's no longer what you're praying, but what God is praying.
Yeah.
We get to hear what he's saying about how we should move. And I think we're in that season. You're talking about rest. That's a nugget all by itself, or a dime. How do we do that? And I want to talk about that later, because we got to, as we're going to maybe end the show on that one, but we got a couple of pop-up guests before we go back into that. So let's pop these guys on here.
Hey there.
What's going on?
Well, these are our children.
Yes.
Yeah, I asked them to pop on. And, you know, I don't know if they went to church today, but
yeah. Both of them looking suspicious. I don't know.
We've got a lot of built-up church.
So how you guys doing?
Ladies first.
I'm good.
You
I'm
good?
upstairs.
Well, I know you're upstairs. Yeah. So you guys just come through a tough season. So, you know, what's your thoughts on it? You know, now that the season, and now that it's over.
I think I'll speak from my season. It was one like no other. Everything going on with the pandemic and obviously the coronavirus. It was a lot of times I was just hoping everybody would stay healthy, and you know, we didn't have necessarily the outcome we wanted, but it was just good that everybody made it through for us, for healthy. And when that last game was over, of course there was some sadness and anger, but a little bit of relief too that we made it through a season that hopefully we'll never have to go through again like that.
Yeah. So in the future, you have anything to say?
It was definitely a long season. There was a lot of there were a lot of stoppages, and we had a good season. We wish we won a championship, but for the most part, I think we're all really proud of how our team handled it, and it was able to get through the season. And at times, like, it was stressful, but you know, they managed to make it to the semifinals, and you know, finished with an 11-5 record. So, you know, there was some craziness, but for the most part, it was very positive for us.
Yeah. So we got Steve Pogue Jr., right? He's a junior.
He's not a junior.
Not a junior. He's just
same name. Different middle name. So he's at a different middle name. So
different middle name. Okay. And then we have Sherelle, which is my daughter, and Steve's pastor's daughter, and they got engaged this past year, right? It was this past year before. The year before, they both got engaged, and looking to get married
to each other.
Yeah,
that's important.
2022.
Yep.
So, tell us how it's going, man. Yeah. Tell us how it's going.
I mean, we've got a venue.
Yeah,
so that's important. We got a place to do it. We got a date, June 9th, 22, like you said. And everything else, we're kind of just, we talk about things, nothing set in concrete yet, though. But I'm sure I'm kind of the give me a couple options and let me say what one I like type of person. I don't have a lot of ideas, so everything will be with your daughter. She'll have a lot of pressure on her, and I'll be saying yay or nay. That'll be my role.
Oh my God!
And then swiping my card.
You better speak up. So, since you guys get married, you got any marriage questions for a pastor?
I mean, I talk to my dad all the time about it. So, I mean,
I got a question. It's not marriage related though.
Okay.
So at family get-togethers, who's gonna win a game of one-on-one between you two?
Between who?
Between me and Steve?
All around. You and Steve, you and my dad and Steve.
Well, I'm
I'm
probably
never
because
gonna
I'm
say
on
I'm gonna
injured
lose.
reserve with my shoulder. I'm probably gonna lose both of those games. But I made a promise to Steven that he would never dunk on me because if he did, I would have to use my insurance because he's gonna get hurt. There's gonna be a hard foul. So, I think the last time we played 1-on-1, I think you won by 2, right?
Yeah, I don't think you haven't won in a while.
Yeah, so it's been a while since he grew. You know, it's been a while, but he knows I'm in the game. It's not easy for him.
Yeah, there's not a lot of easy baskets in those games.
Sound like football to me. Rugby
Yeah,
was.
feels like it too. Feels like it.
So, Pastor, do you have any advice that you would like before I, get, we move on? And any advice you want to give them?
You know, one of the things that when you get married, you'll say your vows to one another. You won't be looking at the guest. You won't be looking at the person marrying you. You'll be looking at each other. And you're going to make those vows to each other and you're going to make those vows to God. And the most important thing that I can say is just live up to those vows. Love each other and enjoy life with one another and just do those things that bring each of you joy. You only live once. And so I'm really excited for both of you. I think that both of you are great people. And this is a great match. And as I said earlier, I think you guys are going to be a real great power couple. And just hang in there and through the rough times, because there will be some rough times. But the rough times will never outweigh the good times. And so even in those moments of rough patches, you've got to remember the good times and remember that y'all in this together, that the two shall become one.
Awesome. So, man, I want to thank you guys, man, for popping on. We both love you.
I think you scared Sherelle with the twins talk.
Don't be scared.
Oh gosh.
Don't be scared.
Yeah, we gonna get 2 out the way. 3.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Be all right.
Yeah, Uncle Sonny's a twin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Adoption sounds lovely right now.
Yeah.
Okay, adopt too.
Yeah, we adopted.
We dropping them off with y'all.
That's the joy of being a grandparent. You can drop them off. There is a return.
We'll see about that.
Yeah. So thank you guys. Appreciate you. We love you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Love you guys.
Love you too. Bye.
Yeah, I want to get back to that. You know what? You did a great job, Pastor, with your son. And Sherelle's a wonderful young lady. He's a wonderful young man, and yeah. Look forward to seeing what the future holds, man.
Yeah, excited about bringing these families together. So really excited about that. So
yeah, that's awesome. So I want to get back to that point I made before they popped on about, because it was a question we dealt with last week too about resting. It says, cast your cares on him for he cares for you.
Mm-hmm.
You casting those burdens, I will give you rest. And yeah, talk a little bit more about how, because I think this is important in this pandemic and through all the issues, and particularly mental health issues and all the things that are going on. Talk a little bit more about resting in the Lord.
Yeah. So there's also, there's that rest we get for our bodies when we go to sleep and those type of things. But there's also this rest in God that is really about having this peace. The Bible says he'll keep your mind in perfect peace when your mind is stayed on him. And in those moments, one of the things that I look for is peace about something. Before I make a decision and praying about things, if I don't have peace about it, I'm really just unsettled until I have some peace. And when you get that peace and you get that rest, you have that confidence that I know this is the way that God is leading me, and I'm okay. I may not know how it's going to turn out, but I know that I'm moving. As you were talking about that narrow road, I know I'm on the right road. And being on that right road, you'll just have this peace and this rest and just this confidence that, you know, you're not tense. You can just let your shoulders drop. You can breathe and take that deep breath and just continue to hold on to God in the midst of it all, and know that in this season, God really doesn't need you to do a lot, but trust him. And I started the year off in New Year's Day, or the first Sunday in New Year's. I usually set the theme for the year, and one of the things I said, this is not the year of double healing and triple anointing and those type of things. This is the year to trust God. This is the year to really put all of our trust in God, that no matter what it looks like, no matter what it sounds like, no matter what it feels like, this is the year to really, really just trust God and believe that God is going to do everything that he promised that he was going to do. And so many times, you know, we live in a quick, fast, and hurry society. So we want it right now. We want everything. If God promised it to me today, I want it tomorrow. And it's not, that's not how God is operating. Many times God has to prepare us for those things that he has promised for us. Right. And so when I use this, and God says, okay, I'm gonna give you a house, I'm gonna bless you with a house, you know, and then you're looking for that house, and God says, no, I got to get you first a better job. We got to fix your credit. We got to get you some savings. We got to do some things, because if I'm going to give you the house, I'm not going to give it to you to lose it. I'm going to make sure that you can keep it and enjoy it and be able to maintain it. And so God takes these opportunities to be able to show us some things, but then also prepare us for those things that he has for us. And so as God is preparing us, we can take rest. And this is my moment of preparation. He's preparing me for the promise. And when you are being prepared for the promise, you are concentrating on those very things that God is speaking in your lives. In those moments of rest, you take those opportunities to listen to the whisper of God. Right? So God hears us when we whisper. But the question is, do we hear God when he whispers?
Yeah.
And so, you know, he still speaks in that still small voice. Are we still enough and at rest enough and at peace enough to say, God, I heard you whisper? You know, I tell people all the time, I want to get so close to God that I can feel him breathing on the back of my neck.
Oh, awesome.
I want to be that close to God that if he whispers something, I'm able to hear it. That he doesn't have to always show up in the fire or the earthquake or in the storm, that God can still show up in that still small voice if we're willing to get still enough and rest enough and be at peace enough to hear what God is speaking for our lives.
Yeah. I think that we're in a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
And you know, in what you're sharing, and also, you know, I've learned over the last 6 years that God has a sound, right? And I think what you're talking about is in this rest. You know, can we hear that sound? It takes that rest to hear that sound.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, God has a frequency, right? And he has a God frequency that he manifests on, that in that rest you can start to find what that frequency is, right? And also what that vibration is. God has a sound, and he has a vibration, and he has a frequency. And I think God is allowing us in this reset, in this rest, to find that.
Yeah. 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 When you said frequency, it reminds me of before we had digital radio. That when you were looking for a radio station, you had to turn the knob, and you couldn't turn it too quick because you'll pass your station. And when you're trying to tune into God, you got to make sure that you get it just right, so you can hear what God is saying. I like that frequency because so many times, you know, when you couldn't tune it in, it'd be staticky. You just go to another station. And God said, if you would have just tuned me in just a little bit more, you would have been able to hear what I'm speaking. I like that. So that was good.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the other thing is when you think about as we come to this last few minutes, you know, Dr. Randy Clark, who you heard earlier, I've got the chance to meet and spend a lot of time with my good friend Pastor Paul, who was on last week, and Dr. Clark. I got a chance to get to know him and the Global Awakening Ministry, and had the opportunity to meet Bill Johnson. And I was, you know, it was so crazy, you know, showing how God was. I seen us work, you know. As an elder, you know, I used to preach, and you know, you break out in sweat, and you know, preachers be preaching and you know, giving it your all and sweating, you know, all those kind of different things like that. And I just seen God manifest sweatlessly in these guys. I mean, where they just they were just doing what God asked them to do, and God was manifesting. And it's interesting how tough it was for them in regards to what we call the Western philosophy, or the Western mindset, and the Eastern mindset. Why is it that you can go to other countries, right, and they can experience God on a whole nother level than they can here in the Western culture?
Probably because we're too free. And what I mean by that, we have too many choices. We have too many opportunities. In so many other cultures, when we talk about dying for the gospel, here in America, we're probably not going to die for the gospel. But in other countries, they will literally die for the gospel. They're living in countries where if people found out they were followers of Christ, they would literally kill them, and they would become martyrs. And so for them to go after God that hard, to believe in the miracles, to believe in the manifestation that God will show up, that God will put sight in blinded eyes, that God will put running in lame legs, he will unstop deaf ears, and to believe that without a doubt, that there's no doubt, there's no waver in that. I don't know, in our society, in our cultures, do we really believe that God still can put sight in blinded eyes? I believe it. I believe that God can still put sight in blinded eyes. I still believe that God can heal those who are sick, and from whatever they're sick from, if that what God can do. And that's why he says, when you sick, call on the elders of the church. Let them lay hands for you. Let them anoint you with oil. You know, and I think there were times in our church culture, in our church life, where, you know, some took it too far, and it became more of a show than it was the reality of God moving. And so people stopped believing in the miracles.
That's right.
Stop believing in the things that God can do. But it's the same God that stopped on the roadside with blind Bartimaeus and put sight back in his eyes. It's the same God that woman with the issue of blood was able to just touch his garment and be healed. It's the same God that was able to make sure that the man at the pool of Bethesda didn't need to jump in the water, that just because he spoke with God, he was able to say, get up, rise, take up your bed and walk. It's the same God that when they took, those four men took that lame man and dropped him in and lowered him in through that broken up roof, that God said, take up your bed and walk. It's the same God. The question is, do we have four brothers? Do we have four people that are willing to take somebody who is lame, who is hurt, who is broken, and rip a roof off to drop them into the presence of God?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I'm believing for that. That is my prayer.
Yeah.
In this time, during the course of this pandemic, we will experience God.
Yeah.
We
in
will
a new way.
At that, yeah, and that next level, that, you know, and that's what I'm striving for. you know, that the body of Christ will come together, that we will experience God at another level. And it's going to be awesome. I'm waiting for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to say thank you. And I want to ask you a couple of other things too. Well, first of all, before we go, we got like about 5 minutes, but the hip hop church, talk to me a little bit about the hip hop church. I like
Wow. When I was pastoring in Harlem, a couple of my young people were dabbling into gospel rap, and they were going over to a church in the Bronx, and they met Curtis Blow.
Okay.
And so one day I get a message to call Curtis Blow. He wanted to talk to me, and so Kurt came in my office, and he was all excited. He said, "Rev, I got this idea for the hip hop church." And I said, "So what is the hip hop church?" He said, "It's church with a hip hop twist." I said, "So what's the twist?" And we literally took out an order of worship and pinned out an order of worship for a hip hop church in about an hour. We talked about, instead of a hymn of praise, it would be a rap of praise. You know, we would have a hip hop church choir. We would have, you know, gospel rappers. We would have all of those things. And really, the mindset was we wanted to reach young people with the gospel in a new, different way. But what happened was families started coming to the hip hop church. So the mother and father would come because they knew Curtis Blow. The young people would come because we had the young rappers.
Right.
But what started out for something for young people really turned into a family affair. And we would do it Thursday nights at the church in Harlem, and we saw so many lives transform. The first Thursday we did it, you know, we printed out 1,000 flyers, put them all out over the place, and we had like 30 people.
Yeah.
You know, and both of us were just deflated, like, this is not going to work. You know, we got to change it. But we kept doing it every Thursday, and every Thursday it started growing and growing and growing and growing to a place where there was some nights with 300-400 people at the hip hop church, and we didn't have a membership. When we started talking about kingdom, there was no membership to the hip hop church. People would say, "I belong to the hip hop church." They would claim membership in the church. We didn't have a membership role or anything like that, but they became involved in the ministry themselves because it was transforming their lives. Parents used to say, "You can't sing in the choir unless you do your homework." I would come in on Thursday afternoon, and kids will be in our Sunday school room doing their homework, helping each other out because they wanted to participate in the hip hop church. Our mothers would bring food for their children right before the hip hop church so they can eat right before hip hop church. And it really just took on a place where God was really, really blessing that. And in the midst of it, bless Kurt. You know, he's a minister now. And Kurt, when you talk about just doing what God called you to do, that's all Kurt was doing. He was just doing what God, he didn't know how, he didn't know when. And it was just divine providence that God put us together and was able to do that. So I was blessed by that part of my ministry.
Yeah, I mean, and we're gonna have to think a little bit outside the box coming out this pandemic.
Absolutely.
And then you know, finally, you're a Knick fan.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, I see you with all the Knick gear on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they giving you something to be proud of this year. And you know what? I'm a old fan. Like, I'm a old Giants fan, an old Jets fan, an old Knick. They go my man Walt Frazier.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to get connected with the new Knicks, you know, although I'm in New York, and so I root for all New York teams. And I kind of go from player to player to player. I'm a player fan, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a diehard Knick fan. I'm a root for them, you know, whether they're bad or good. And, you know, for the last few years, they've been bad. But to be able to see what they're doing now with some young players, with a good new coach, you know, they win some, they lose some. But I think that's just part of the transition of them trying to gel together, not having that superstar name, but be able to just play together and play well. So, yeah, I'm excited for the season.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, I look forward to in the future, man, working with you on some things that I think God wants us to experience, and some things outside the box, man, because I believe that the kingdom is here, right? And I believe that God wants to show himself strong and mighty. And so I'm looking forward to the future.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Once it's shoulder here, we can talk about it on the golf course.
Yes, sir. And again, thank you. I appreciate you taking time out your busy schedule and coming on with me. And to everyone who supports each and every week, I thank you again. Love your comments and questions. I want to say thank you to my man Carmine, who's doing the producing back there, and to Steve Vaccaro and the Chapters Rap that assist us each and every week. Man, I just love your support, man. Keep praying for us, and enjoy the rest of this evening. And
thanks for having me.
Blessed a blessed week. And I look forward to having Pastor A.R. Bernard on next week, and then Bishop Darren Moore on the following week. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about God and the faithfulness of his people. So thank you. Good night, and God bless you. God bless you, Pastor.
Thanks for having me. Great being here.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of Lowe's More, the BluePrint podcast. Stay connected and follow us at our website, www.lowesmore.com. That's LOWESMOORE.com. You can also join the discussion on Twitter at Lowe's More and on Facebook at Lowe's More Jr. As always, thank you for pushing your mindset towards a better reality. This concludes the most thought-provoking portion of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast to stay fully up to date with everything we're up to. Until next time, be kind to yourself and each other.
What they teaching is a joke, I ain't buying it like